I'm Teresa, welcome back to my channel, and today I will be doing my April wrap-up. And for this very special occasion, I even went so far as to curling my hair, which took like an hour, so you better appreciate that, okay? April was a really great reading month for me. I managed to get through 8 books, and I also have 1 that I didn't finish, so 9 technically, but also not really. Considering I also participated in the Tome Topple Readathon this month, the purpose of which was reading as many books as you possibly could over 500 pages, I think I did pretty well because like 4 of the books I read were part of that readathon and were fairly long, so yay, go me, okay. But let's back up a little bit. So the first book I managed to read this month was The Unpredictable Consequences of Love by Jill Mansell. This book is set in England in a town called St. Caris, and the main character is Sophie, a photographer who works at a hotel there as part of the time, and she runs into the, I think, owner's son of the hotel, and he shows some interest in her, but because of certain things that happened to her in her past, she is not really willing to date at this point. She's not looking for a relationship, but he's kind of persistent. And alongside that, there are a lot of other love stories that like this book follows, I guess. I think there's like 4 or 5 in total, and at first I kind of turned me off a little bit of this because in the first few chapters, so many people are introduced and you're supposed to care about all of them, and that is kind of impossible. And so at first I actually thought that this might be a DNF for me. But at the end of the day, I ended up really enjoying this and I gave it 4 stars out of 5. It's just really lighthearted and fun to read about these characters, even though obviously, like with this book being just like a chick lit romance, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't really make sense. But you've just got to be able to kind of overlook that and ignore it, because that's not the point of the story. It's just lighthearted and it's romance and it's fun. So it's a really good spring read and I quite enjoyed this one. After that came the Tome Topple Readathon. So within this readathon, I managed to read 4 books total that I've already wrapped up. So I will link this wrap up in the cards up above. So if you're interested in hearing my reviews on those books, go and check it out. So the books I read for the readathon were The Republic of Thieves by Scott Lynch, The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness, Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, and finally In the Woods by Tana French. So go check out my wrap-up for my thoughts on those ones. The final book I attempted for that readathon and didn't quite finish within that time limit, I finished like 2 days later, and that was Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. This book follows Lou Clark, who lost her job and she lives in a really small town and there's nothing real that she can do. Without success, she's trying to find different jobs and she does like little things here and there, but nothing real that she's enjoying or that's even like good for her in any way. And by chance, she ends up coming across the job offer for helping a quadriplegic man. That man is Will Trainer, and he has had a horrible accident about 2 years ago, which has rendered him basically unable to move. He has to sit in a wheelchair, he can barely move his arms, he can't move his legs at all, and he's just generally in a really poor condition. He's basically given up on life, and so has Lou in a way, because she has just lived all her life in this little city and she doesn't really do much. She doesn't have any ambitions really to go beyond those limits, and she becomes his caregiver basically. And obviously by doing that they have to spend more time together, and Will encourages her to kind of go beyond those limits that she has set herself and kind of grow as a person. Lou shows Will that his life may be worth living after all. I think I ended up rating this book 3 stars. Again, this is another like kind of romance type book, or at least it's supposed to be romantic. I just had kind of a few problems with it that really annoyed me. I didn't really like Lou as a character because she's extremely annoying, and her little thing of like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine with my like limited horizon. I don't need to grow. I don't need to see the outside world. Like, I'm young and and have things that I can do with my life, but I'm just gonna choose not to do anything with them until this guy tells me to do them. So that was kind of her thing. And then Will, not saying any spoilers, but some of his decisions, let's just put it that way, are very, very questionable. Just extremely questionable, especially in the face of other things. It's extremely hard to talk about this, but it just annoyed me because a lot of people have talked about this book saying that it sends a very negative message, saying that it's very ableist kind of in a way, and basically the essential message, even though it's not trying to be the message, but the message of this is that if you are disabled and you're quadriplegic and you're in a wheelchair, your life is not worth living. And I just think that that's very damaging and, you know, problematic, which is the word that's thrown around on BookTube, like nobody's business, but it's true in this case. I think it's very problematic to kind of send that message, and a lot of people, I've even read reviews of this by disabled people, and they say like, yeah, that's not at all how it really is. So humans adjust to alterations to their circumstances and to yeah, changes to their body, and of course it's a traumatic experience, and nobody wants to be disabled, but it doesn't mean that your life has no more meaning, and that's kind of, I think, kind of bad with this one. So yeah. Also, I didn't really feel the emotional roller coaster this book is supposed to send you on. Again, because I had so many problems with the characters, I didn't really care about them enough to really be kind of affected by the things that happened to them, basically. So yeah, kind of just like not living up to the hype for me. Funnily enough, or not funnily in that sense, but yeah, the next book I read also has a character that is kind of fed up with life, and that book is The Last Werewolf by Glenn Duncan. This book is the first in a trilogy, I think, that centers around Jack. I forget everyone's names, but I think it's, no, Jacob. Oh, Jake. Jake or Jacob. This book centers around Jake, who is the last werewolf on Earth, as the title suggests. He has been a werewolf for 200 years, and throughout this time he has been hunted by a WOCOP, I think is what they're called, which is an organization that is trying to kill and eradicate all werewolves, and now he's the last one, and he's still trying to escape their clutches, but at this point 200 years have passed. The leader of WOCOP is kind of obsessed with killing Jake, but he also wants to kill the monster and not the man, so he is specifically waiting for the full moon to put an end to his life. Jake is also waiting for the full moon because he has decided to like just lie down and take it. He's fed up with life. He is just at the end of his rope, basically. He's bored, he's annoyed with everything, he feels he's nothing to live for, and so he decides that he wants to die at this point. Then certain things happen. People start coming into his life, and he realizes that some of the assumptions that he has made are maybe not quite right, and he finds something to live for again. But then WOCOP comes, and they want to kill him again. So basically, that is the premise of this book, and I'm very bad at explaining it, as always. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. I really loved the writing style, in the sense that Glenn Duncan is able to have like such a flowery sense of writing. And I know flowery is a word that's sometimes used in a negative way, but I think it's kind of, I mean it in a positive way, basically. He literally writes the story like it is poetry, and it's just mind-blowing. At times I had trouble like actually understanding everything, because there were so many like higher level words in like one sentence that kind of took me longer to process them, but I still understood everything at the end of the day, and I really did enjoy this. It's definitely, though, not for the faint-hearted, because there's a lot of violence and a lot of sex in it. There aren't as many specific sex scenes as you might think, but as part of the werewolf thing, they apparently have increased libido, which means that apparently Jake has to make some kind of sexual reference like every other page, and don't get me wrong, I don't really care about that kind of stuff. I don't care about swearing. I don't care if you like want to talk about your dick all the time, but at some point, okay, at some point it just gets freaking annoying. And that's what happened for me with this book. Just shut up for a second about like how much you want to have sex with someone. Like, I don't fucking care anymore. And just think about one other thing. I mean, I get it's part of their makeup, you know, like that's what they are, but it's just, it was annoying to me, and I didn't really like it that much. Even though some of the sex scenes he wrote about like really poetically, so that's pretty good. So he didn't write it like erotica, he wrote those more like, I would say like a erotic poem, I guess. I do want to continue the series, but somehow the second book in hardcover is either really expensive or really hard to find, specifically with this cover, so I don't know. And then the final book I read this month, I just finished last night, and I made it my goal to finish it before the end of April. And I know no one cares if you're reading like the wee hours of 1st of May and you're like, ew, you can't put that in your April wrap-up, but I care. So I had to finish it, and it was so good. Oh my god. I read The Dark Days Club by Alison Goodman. I hadn't even known that this book existed until very recently, and I loved Ian and Iona by Alison Goodman, and so I was so excited to pick this up. This book has been described in other reviews as the Infernal Devices meets Jane Austen, and I think that kind of hits it on the spot. It is set in Regency London in the year 1812, and it follows Lady Helen, who is being presented to the Queen for the first time. It is her first season basically out in social and polite society, and she's now supposed to find a husband to marry. So yeah, that's her life basically. Helen is also struggling with the kind of scandal she has inherited from her mother, Lady Catherine, who has died about 10 years ago, and she was proclaimed a traitor to the crown. So Lady Helen now kind of carries that burden with her and is trying her very best to kind of fight against that. At the same time of that happening, a man called Lord Carlston returns to London. He hasn't been there for several years after rumors that he has killed his wife Elise, and just he's not a good guy. People look down on him, they don't really want him around, but because he's a lord, he kind of has to be permitted basically back into society, and he's like trying to worm himself back into everything. And the two run into each other and stuff starts to happen. Lady Helen discovers that she has this really strong energy running through her, and that she is developing weird like talents and gifts and like weird strength and like quick reflexes and stuff like that, and she wonders what's happening. Also, there are strange occurrences happening in town where people are disappearing and no one knows why, and it's really weird. And obviously it all boils down to demon hunting, so that's pretty cool. I really like Regency London stories, and sometimes they're just not done well, but this I really enjoyed. I give this book 4.5 stars. The reason I didn't give it a full 5 stars is because it wasn't very original, I have to say. Honestly, like, I have read several versions of the story before, but I still really love this book. Everything that it did right. There's many things that I really loved about this. First is Lady Helen as a character. She is awesome. She is so smart. She is capable of logical thinking and rational decision making. And you know, she doesn't do this stupid thing that annoys me all the time when heroines do that. When they kind of discover that they have like powers and that they're kind of involved in like this big picture scheme in a way, and someone else is like trying to show them how to do it properly, they will like interfere and like try to test out their new powers even though they're told not to do it. You know what I mean? Happens all the time. She doesn't do it. There's an entire scene where she watches her mentor do shit and she just stands there, and I'm like, thank you. That is the only logical thing to do in this situation. If you've just been confronted with like new powers and new abilities and now you got to do something, of course first you need to watch how to do it. Jesus fucking Christ, when people don't do that, it annoys me. But Lady Helen, props to you, you know how to do it right. This book has also just like such a wonderful and historically accurate setting that I really appreciated. The author did like a ton of research, I think, on this era and like on everything, and you can really tell that she knows what she's talking about basically. I also really like the love story in this. It is a very slow burning romance, I would say, so not much happens for most of this book, which I really like. There are some tendencies towards a love triangle in this, but it is either like, you could either view it as not a love triangle, which is awesome, or a well done love triangle, which is also awesome, because she doesn't have the same amount of feeling for each of them. They just kind of both represent two different lives that she could choose between. She has more feelings for one, but the other is like the more sensible choice. So yeah, I feel like that's a love triangle that makes sense. I just don't buy into those situations where a girl is supposed to like have an equal amount of love for two different guys. Like, that is not realistic, okay? That does not happen. Nope. Really like this book. I already ordered the sequel because I'm dying to see how it continues. So you'll definitely see that in my May wrap up, because I will jump into that as fast as I possibly can. Right. And then finally, I don't even know when I read this book, so I'm just gonna mention it. The book I DNF'd was Strange Medicine by Mike Russell. This is a short story collection centered around like weird stories and kind of magical like weird fantasy stories that that's like the only thing that you could describe it as, because literally most of them did not make sense. This was actually sent to me as an ebook by the publishers for review, but I just could not get through it. I read about half of the stories, and there were some that were okay, but most of them just genuinely didn't make any sense. They didn't seem to have any kind of message. They just, you know, when somebody just like writes like their brain vomit, that's kind of what they read like. I'm not saying that they're necessarily poorly written. I do think that there were some that had potential, but it's just really not my kind of thing, I think, and just not my cup of tea, so had to unfortunately DNF that one. So anyway, that is it for all the books that I read in April. I had a really great reading month. I read so much stuff. I really enjoyed. Did I have any one-star reads this month? No. Except for maybe the one I DNF'd. But like I didn't have any like rants this month for you. So maybe you're happy about this, maybe you're not. I'm happy that I liked everything because that's awesome. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. Don't forget to check out my social media, and that's linked down below. Like and subscribe and come back very soon for another video. I will see you then. Have a lovely week. Bye! Alright. Why is my internet so slow? I'm just like fine. So I ended up giving this book, I keep forgetting my readings. I read this like 5 days ago. Anyway guys, that's it for all the books. Oh shit, I forgot. Alright. Yay.